Hi everyone, my name is Julia and I'll be presenting this research entitled The Potential of Guiding Images for River Restoration Efforts, a literature review. It was developed by me, Camilla Thurler, Professor Aline Veról, Luciana Guimarães, and Professor Marcelo Miguez. This work is part of the research group's Project in Environmental Representation and Management of Urban Stormwater and Sustainable Cities, of both the graduate program in architecture and in civil engineering at the University of Rio de Janeiro. The process of urban growth, unaccompanied by adequate integrated planning, has led to significant changes in the natural environment, posing major challenges for policymakers, arising from environmental, climatic, and urban issues at different scales around the world. In Brazil specifically, some effects are associated with these challenges, such as the decrease in the flow capacity, the increase in irregular settlements, and the lack of basic infrastructure, such as sanitary sewage and garbage collection. So while urban rivers often suffer these kinds of degradation, they end up contributing to the propagation of diseases, decreased quality of life, and devaluation of the surrounding landscapes. Therefore, the general perception is often that there is nothing natural about these rivers, and the desired solutions for these quote-unquote specters of the past is surface or underground channeling. But that alternative decreases environmental values and creates difficult and costly maintenance conditions. So this is when urban river restoration efforts emerge as an alternative to balance human needs and the natural dynamics of water in urban areas. Given this context, two issues are investigated. The first refers to the concept of river restoration and its implications around the world, and the second concerns the potential of a methodological tool to guide those restoration efforts. The term guiding image, coined by Palmer et al. In 2005, involves the determination of general goals for a locally oriented process of river restoration that also comprehends the condition on a catchment scale. So river restoration should aim to maintain or increase ecosystem goods and services, protecting coastal and downstream ecosystems, what we can read as to become resilient. Other authors indicate that there should not be a universally applicable endpoint for restoration actions, given the regional differences in natural patterns, such as geology, climate, vegetation, land use history, and species distribution. In addition to that, since the resilience of a watercourse is a dynamic concept that depends on the time scale and the key variables, the reestablishment of the original river boundaries cannot necessarily be considered the best answer. Another point is that urban rivers specifically carry a new layer of variables to the equation, given their complex characteristics that incorporate new functions beyond their natural capacity and flow. Palmer and others proposed 5 criteria to measure the ecological success of river restoration, to reach a consensus on a set of standards, as well as a broad contribution by the scientific community. And that's why we believe restarting this conversation on an event like this is so important. Their first standard is that the design must be based on a specific guiding image constituted by a set of goals for the most dynamic and healthy river that can exist. In order to develop the guiding image, the authors identify 4 aspects that should be considered. First, preconditions should be established by use of historical information such as satellite images, maps, and others. Secondly, reference sites for comparison could be used to help define restoration goals where historical information is lacking. Thirdly, an analytical or process-based approach that employs empirical models can be used to guide the design. And finally, an approach that considers river classification systems could help to develop the design by employing categorization based on common characteristics. So according to Veról and al., in addition to the socioeconomic goals, 4 pillars can be considered. the improvement of water quality and of river ecosystems, the reduction of hydraulic risk, and the geomorphological recovery. The authors further divided river restoration practices into two groups. The first one being the structural actions, such as the removal of risk elements, and the second one of non-structural actions, involving the development of social awareness of the value of water courses, participatory planning, environmental education, and information accessibility. Based on these preliminary observations, we reviewed the literature to discuss and further analyze if and how the creation of a guiding image has been used for the recovery of degraded urban rivers, and if it contributes to the generation of collective awareness and maintenance. This literature review focuses on two general axes, the thematic trends and the technical approaches, and we reflect on which themes have been studied the most in recent years and what kind of approaches are being applied and for what purpose. A search on the Scopus database was performed for a period over 20 years, starting in the 2000s, the year of establishment of the European Water Framework Directive, until 2020. A reference manager file was exported from the database and used as an input in the open source software VozViewer. This approach allowed the creation of a correlation map of terms based on author keywords, and general terms related to the approaches described before were ranked being the primary terms directly related to the concept of guiding image, the secondary terms alluding to the aspects possibly considered during the design of a guiding image, and the tertiary terms related to the development of actual case studies appearing among the results. Moreover, the term river restoration was used in the Scopus database search combined with each of the primary and secondary terms, resulting in a total of 10 combination of search. The reference manager files collected from Scopus database were added to VozViewer, and the map in which each term is represented by a circle sized according to its number of occurrences was made. The circled terms are connected by links represented by lines whose thickness indicate the intensity of connection between them by considering the number of publications in which they appear. The chosen mode of visualization for the mapping was the overlay visualization, which reveals the incidence of years. So the relevance of the period between 2010 and 15 is observed by color. The circles with more intense reddish color are more recent than the others. As we can see through reading the VozViewer map, the relevance of publications on the topic has grown significantly since the end of the 20th century. The analysis show at least a lack of consensus between terms and approaches, but it was possible to map their evolution. Specifically in the line graph of primary terms, reference, condition, guideline, and goals show exponential growth, and on the other hand, guiding image and image reconstruction had an opposite pattern. In the line graph for secondary terms, show a discrepancy between the most prominent terms, historical analysis and reference site, and in comparison, the secondary terms analytical model, typology, and empirical experience shows similar behavior over the years. We can also see the secondary term reference site did not show enough relevance based on the number of occurrences in publications, unlike the adopted primary term reference condition, which refers to a previous state of the watercourse itself as a reference for the condition to be recovered. From the results, we selected 4 case studies which allude directly or indirectly to the guiding image tool applied to their processes. The first case selected was the study of the management process of 2 river corridors in South Tyrol, Italy, that mentions the exact term guiding image. The second case refers to the restoration of the Kissimmee River in Florida, United States, in which much is discussed about the historical analysis of its land use changes. The third case selected is the Hunter River in New South Wales, Australia, which also appears in the Scopus report that led to the mapping of terms. And its discussion involves the historical analysis of the catchment to identify the mechanisms of disturbance and response, to define goals for process-based restoration, and it also directly refers the term guiding image. We then organized the case studies data into tables on general information, history of degradation, and related goals, divided among the 4 pillars of river restoration mentioned above. The process of degradation shown in this table date back centuries, with the Hunter River having the oldest records. The Kissimmee River's process is the most recent, and in both the Australian and Italian cases, damage caused by the generation of hydropower was identified. In addition, in all cases, the modification of the systems were motivated by external agents, emphasizing the traditional solutions of rigid engineering for the control of floods and the presence of industries in the process. The identification of the changes suffered in these considered a classification according the 4 pillars of river restoration, being the reduction of hydraulic risk, geomorphological recovery, improvement of water quality, and of river ecosystems. All 4 were found regarding the Kissimmee and Hunter rivers, but not in the rivers in Italy. In the Kissimmee and Hunter rivers, the reduction of hydraulic risk and the improvement of water quality have greater relevance among the goals, and for the Isarco River, the geomorphological recovery stands out, while in the Adige River stretches, it is the reduction of hydraulic risk and the improvement of river ecosystems. Measures to encourage recreation, education, and accessibility were also identified in all cases, with the goal of promoting a closer relationship between the population and these rivers. These actions aim to establish links between the urban environment and the water resources available in these regions to instill greater public concern. The analysis showed the relevance of the following approaches. First, the retrieval and consideration of historical information were present in all project plans, helping to establish preconditions considering the history of river degradation. In both Australian and Italian cases, the approach considered river classification systems, enabling a better adaptation of the goals to each situation. All cases used an analytical approach or empirical process to guide the design phase, which includes monitoring of various deadlines. The application of a reference site was not identified in any of the cases, but considering that they are all limited to specific river stretches, these projects can later serve as a reference for other efforts. In addition, the focus on development of a set of goals as an important process of the river restoration effort is discussed more regarding the river's past conditions as a way of understanding current conditions and what led to them. This research aims to continue reviewing literature around urban river restoration processes and design tools, specifically focusing on social acceptance and education in favor of sustainable development. So the plan is to further study more recent papers over the main theme and over Brazilian cases in order to compare and reflect on the processes. Thank you.